I'm joined by Samantha Delaney. She is a 2019 graduate from St. Michael's College in Vermont, where she was a two-time captain on the women's basketball team. She earned her bachelor's in biochemistry and is now getting her Ph.D. In biochemistry. Samantha, how are you doing today?
Doing very well. Thank you so much for having me. How are you?
Good. So yeah, how are you doing and how were your holidays? I know we just got out of the holidays recently.
Yeah, they were very nice. I'm here in New York City right now, but I'm originally from Long Island, so I popped over there for a couple of days, spent some time with family, and it was really nice. How were your holidays?
Good. Yeah, didn't do too much, but they were good.
Yeah.
Nice. So yeah, you said you're currently in New York City getting your PhD in biochemistry. So tell me a little bit about that, getting your PhD.
hmm Yeah, so you're actually catching me at an interesting time. So I'm actually about 1 month away from defending and wrapping up. So you're catching me
Okay.
at the very tail end of my PhD.
Well,
But yeah,
congrats.
thank you.
Hmm.
It's been a really, really good experience. I've really enjoyed it, and I'm very pleased with the way that it went. I started my PhD the fall after I graduated St. Mike's, so fall of
Okay.
2019. And yeah, I ended up joining a laboratory in the fields of nuclear medicine and molecular imaging. So essentially, my research is focused on the development of novel radio tracers, or we call them radiopharmaceuticals, which are essentially, I synthesize novel radioactive molecules that can either be used for the imaging or the therapy of different kinds of cancer.
Mhm.
And I've really been enjoying the work. It's a fascinating field to be in. It truly is translational. We really do go from molecules to medicine, from bench to bedside. And then another part of my work has been actually using these imaging modalities, these medical imaging modalities, specifically positron emission tomography (PET), for purposes other besides cancer, for other purposes besides cancer care. And so my work has been mainly using these medical imaging modalities like PET for tracking environmental pollutants within the body. How can we harness these medical imaging modalities to track environmental pollutants? So that's sort of been my experience with my PhD. Like I said, I'm about a month out from finishing, and I'm really happy with the way that it went. Yeah, I think it's a really exciting field to be in.
Nice. That's awesome. So now that you're a month away from receiving your PhD, yeah, first, what was your goal in getting your PhD? And once you receive it, what do you think your plan will be after, receiving your PhD?
Yeah, so I have a position lined up. I have
Okay.
plans to stay in my fields. I really like them. So I'm actually I it's common after you get your PhD to do a couple more years of research, just to get some more training under your belt. It's called a postdoctoral fellowship, or a postdoc for short. So I
Okay.
have a postdoc lined up abroad, actually. So a bit after I defend, I will be moving to Europe very soon this year. So
Okay.
for a research position there in the same fields, which I'm very excited about.
Do you know where in Europe, or it can be anywhere in Europe?
Yes, I'm moving to Copenhagen,
Oh,
Denmark.
okay. Oh yeah, my sister, I went to Copenhagen once. She studied abroad in Copenhagen, so I've been there once. That was a few years
Oh,
ago.
that's awesome. Yeah, it's a really, really cool city. I'm very excited about it.
Nice. Well, good luck with that. Um,
Thank you.
so you received your bachelor's in biochemistry. Have you always been interested, in biochemistry or that field?
Yes and no.
Mhm.
If we were to go back to like when I was a kid, I really wanted to be an author.
Okay.
I would crank out fiction stories like there was no tomorrow. I was always writing, and I always thought that when I went to college, I would be like a journalism major with a creative writing minor, or something like that. It wasn't until like late high school that I decided to enter as a biochemistry major in college. Um, and a number of things played into that. One was like my family. I have a huge extended family and nobody's in STEM. And so my parents were kind of like, you go do it. And then there was also, I had to go see a pediatric cardiologist. I'm fine, but I had to get sent to this specialist. And she was so cool. And she was telling me about her experience about being a biochemistry major in college and her experience in medical school. And then also, I went to a huge high school, but I was always in the same classes with like the same core group of students. And we were all very similar and were really dedicated and ambitious students. And I looked up to them. I looked up to my peers, and a lot of them were going to go into the fields of STEM. And so I kind of just thought like, oh, this is like what 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 the good students do. Like I'll continue on with this. So that's sort of what swayed me to major in biochemistry. It's not something I envisioned myself doing my whole life. And so then when I entered college, I had thought that I wanted to go to medical school or go to PA school or do something more on the clinical side after college. But at St. Mike's, I majored in biochemistry, but I also had two minors in French and religious studies. And ironically, it's actually that experience that swayed me to do a PhD in biochemistry instead of something like medical school or PA school, because it sort of made me realize that I my dream career wasn't being a physician. It was something that's able to incorporate all of my passions and everything that I'm interested in, spanning the natural sciences, the social sciences, and the humanities. And I didn't want to be doing just science as a physician or a clinician all day, because I really, really enjoyed my French and religious studies classes. So that's why I decided to give research a try. And I really liked it. So I feel like my path has sort of led me to this new position in research where I am able to combine all of those passions. You know, I do get to do very exciting biomedical research, but I also get to travel a lot because of my work. And I get to work with people from all over the world every single day. I get to publish and write and network and public speak and use all these different skills that I learned in my social sciences and humanities classes at St. Mike's. So to go back to your original question, no, this isn't what I had thought I originally would be doing. And even when I thought I had it figured it out in college, I was still sort of finding my path when I was there.
Yeah, it sounds great. Yeah, biochemistry may not have been your original plan, but sounds like you've really liked, your transition into biochemistry now. So yeah, talk more about your minoring in French at St. Mike's. I believe I saw doing research that you studied abroad. Um, so yeah,
Yeah, so tying in with basketball, actually, because basketball is a sport that spans both semesters,
okay,
we can't take a full semester abroad. And so I was able, St. Mike's was so great because they offer, I'm sure as you know, they offer these academic study trips that go for, 2 to 3 weeks, maybe even a little bit more than 3 weeks, where you're in a place. And I was able to do the medieval Burgundy course with Professor Terrell Kinder after my first year of college. And we traveled all over the Burgundy region of France. And that was an awesome experience. It was perfect because it was in the summer after the semester had ended. So I wasn't missing basketball or anything like that. It was 3 weeks, 4 credit course. It was a really an amazing experience. And she is a phenomenal professor to this day. When I am traveling or I'm in a new place or see a piece of art, I think of her and I think of the things that I learned in her class.
nice. That's awesome. So yeah, you grew up in Smithtown, New York, which is on Long Island. So tell me what was it like for you growing up on Long Island?
It was great growing up on Long Island. I had the opportunity to and I had access to, play in a wide variety of sports. So I ended up playing basketball in college, but for, the majority of my childhood, I took soccer really seriously. And so I started playing
Okay,
soccer at a really young age. That was the first sport that I played. And then the sport after that was, at the same time too, I picked up baseball and then that turned into softball. And it wasn't until like second grade that I started playing basketball. And then throughout, middle school and high school, I also played volleyball and lacrosse. So growing up on Long Island was great. I had access to every sport under the sun. I was determined to play every sport under the sun. I loved my high school. I had a really great high school experience in terms of the classes I was able to take, the sports I was able to play, the clubs I got to be a part of, the trips I got to go on. It was a really good high school experience. Yeah, and then just, on a different note, I think Long Island is very beautiful.
hmm
Beaches everywhere, right next to New York City, all four seasons. Hamptons, Montauk, but the whole time you're just in suburbia playing, basketball in the street. So
Nice.
I really enjoyed my childhood on Long Island.
Nice. So yeah, you said you played, um, lots of different sports, growing up, but tell me more about your basketball career. So, how did you get into basketball and, when did you start playing basketball and, what are some early memories you have, growing up playing basketball?
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, my first sports were soccer, baseball, softball.
Mm.
And then I started playing basketball in second grade, I believe.
Okay.
Um, and it wasn't because I was tall, which I am. And I've always been tall. I've never been like average height and then like had a random growth spurt. Like my whole life I've always been the tallest one.
Okay.
But that's not why I played basketball. It's just because I was determined to play every sport under the sun. So I started playing the CYO leagues, the Catholic Youth Organization leagues, with one of the churches in my town, and I played that for a couple of years. And then I started playing AAU and in like seventh grade. And that's seventh grade is when basketball started to turn a lot more serious for me. So I started playing AAU. I actually stopped playing CYO to focus more on AAU, which I remember being thinking that was weird because in my town at least, all the boys played CYO up until 12th grade and they took it so seriously. Whereas for girls, it was the complete opposite story. If you wanted to take basketball seriously, you actually needed to stop playing CYO, which I always thought was like really, really funny and really interesting. But I stopped playing CYO so I could focus more time on AAU. Seventh grade is when I started also like training with outside trainers and doing individual workouts and individual training sessions to really develop my game. And yeah, and then I played with three different AAU organizations from seventh grade to 12th grade. I played with one organization for 2 years, one organization for 1 year. And then when I was in 10th grade, that's the organization that I stuck with and the coach that I worked with, in terms of, throughout the entire college recruiting process, or when I should say the college recruiting process really started to ramp up in those later years. But I really enjoyed it. Like I said, I had access to everything. We went to great tournaments, got lots of good exposure, and I had access to awesome basketball trainers on Long Island that really developed my game.
Nice. So you attended Smithtown East High School. But what I'm interested to know about is you're on the girls' varsity team since eighth grade. So how did that work out being an eighth grader and being on the high school varsity team?
Yeah, it was definitely interesting. I it all happened so fast. So, like I said, I started playing AAU in seventh grade, and that's
Mhm.
where my family and I actually learned that it was possible for you to play up. I feel like it's a lot more common now, but back when I was in seventh and eighth grade, this was not a common thing to do.
Okay.
So there are some school districts on Long Island where you are allowed to move up in seventh grade. My school district was not one of them. For a contact sport, you are not allowed to move up in seventh grade. You were allowed to move up in eighth grade, and you were only allowed to move up if you passed a physical examination in terms of not just like a physical where you go for a doctor, a physical test, strength, speed, to sort of prove that you can compete at the high school level as an eighth grader. So we started learning about this whole process through the people on my AAU team. And so that's what I did. We contacted the high school coach and the athletic director of the school district, and I took a physical test, and I had to get clearance from all the doctors and everything. And that's how I sort of got pulled up to the varsity sports when I was in eighth grade. So I got pulled up and I played varsity basketball and varsity volleyball. Um, and so it was definitely what I needed. It was a really great place to be in terms of where I wanted my game to go. I definitely needed to be at that level of competition when I was in eighth grade. So it
Nice.
was it was a good experience.
So in high school you scored 1,000 career points, but tell me about the game when you scored 1,000 career points. I see you got your 1,000th career point in high school by scoring your single game personal best over 40 points. So tell me about that game.
I remember I remember that game like vividly, that moment
Okay.
vividly. It was a really fun moment. So I we were playing Babylon, and I remember like going into the locker room at halftime, and my coach came in, and we were up and we were winning, and we were all just like in good moods, pumped up. It's halftime, we're up, you know, the feeling.
Mhm.
And my coach came in and like didn't say anything for a second because he was like trying to like find the words. And I remember him like looking at me and being like, okay, guys, everyone. And then he looked at the whole team and was like, feed Sam, which is, you know, something with, you know, young athletes you never really want to do. But I had 22 points at the half, I think, and I needed 24 to reach 1,000 or something like that. I had 24 at the half. And, you know, if you score 20 points in a full game in basketball for
Yeah.
an individual, that's considered to be a very, very high scoring game. So the
Yeah.
fact that I had like 22 at the half, he sort of was just kind of like, this could be a big night for you. So let's try and make this happen for her. And they did. My team did. They pulled through. They fed me. We really kept pushing the ball in transition, and I actually scored that 1,000th point on a foul shot. And so it was definitely a lot of fun, and it was fun to have my team there celebrating and cheering for me. And um, yeah, I'm sure we'll talk about this later, but I ended up getting injured my final year of college. And I tried not to think about this, but other people were telling me about it. They were telling me how close I was to 1,000 points for at St. Mike's at college as well. And so it's a bummer that I didn't get to experience that because of my injury. But scoring 1,000 points in basketball is a really, really cool milestone, and I'm really happy that I got to experience it. So
Yeah, that's a very special milestone. And yeah, still something that you, as you said, you remember vividly even to this day,
yeah,
several years after high school. So tell me,
several years after high school at this point, yeah.
so tell me, how did you end up at St. Mike's, and was your goal always to play, college basketball?
Yeah, I sort of I hate telling my St. Mike's story because it makes me sound like I had such an aversion to it when I didn't. But the truth is I didn't want to come to St. Mike's. I just didn't know what it was. I grew up on Long Island, had never heard of St. Michael's, had never even been to Vermont before I visited. The reason I found out it existed is because my AAU coach told me that the coach at St. Mike's was really interested in me.
Mhm.
Um, Looking back on it, I knew it during the time, but looking back on it, like years removed, I confirm it. I had a really rough recruiting process, and I can only imagine it's even more rough for the kids these days, especially with social media and the way that it has absolutely exploded, and the way that you can post your highlight reels and tag people, and coaches these days can have easy access to see your game. So I can only imagine what the recruiting process is like these days. But for me, you know, however many years ago, it was still really rough. I had my main draw to playing basketball in college was the opportunity to get a full ride scholarship. And in Division two, NCAA Division two, basketball and football are the sports that can offer full ride scholarships. So I had a lot of offers and was in contact with a lot of Division one and Division two coaches. Um, and I'll spare you all the chaotic details, but um, I I literally watched and experienced each scholarship offer I had fall one by one by one by one, fall through for every reason in the book, for every reason under the sun. And because I had never been to Vermont, had never heard of St. Mike's, didn't really know too much about it. I had grown up knowing about all of these other programs. I wanted to go there instead. I wanted to go to any other school but St. Mike's just because I was familiar with it. Um, and then, you know, the process went on, and I watched St. Mike's remain the only full ride offer I had left. And
Okay.
so I ended up committing my August before my senior year, which when you say that to a, you know, like not a high school student that's not playing a sport in college, that's so early. You say that to somebody who's planning on playing basketball in college, that is incredibly late, incredibly late. I was the last person out of
Yeah.
anyone on my team to
Hmm.
commit to their college. And it was because I just kept pushing St. Mike's off. And I always like to end this story by saying that how silly of me. How silly of me. St. Mike's is quite literally one of the best things that's ever happened to me. So yeah, everything happens for a reason. But that's how I ended up at St. Mike's. It was just truly by chance and the money, if I'm being completely honest.
Okay, cool. Yeah, you pushed off St. Mike's, but it ended up working in the end. So it's
Yeah.
awesome. So at St. Mike's, you were a two-time captain. I mean, one of the years you finished third in NA10 in blocks. So yeah, tell me, how was your time at St. Mike's getting to play college basketball, and what did it mean to you to be a two-time captain of the women's basketball team?
I it's I feel like every athlete can relate to this, but my identity is ingrained in being a basketball player. And I'm, almost 5 years out from graduation, which is wild to think about. And I haven't played a college basketball game in years, but when I think about myself as a person, I think of being a basketball player. Um, I really, really love that I was able to play basketball in college, and it truly was an amazing experience. And it made me the person that I am today. Um, and some of my best friends were my teammates, and some of my fondest memories are from college, are playing and are with my team and are with my teammates. And I learned so much from my coaches, and I learned so much about myself just persevering through those 4 years. Um, and then, yeah, getting to be a two-time captain was a huge honor, a huge honor. Um, logistically speaking, my junior year, my senior co-captain was Madison Bennett, who is a very great friend of mine, and she is an amazing leader, and her basketball IQ is just through the roof. And so getting to work with her was really great. And then senior year, junior and senior year, my co-captain was the person in my class, Emily Ferreri, who I've always just been on the same page with everything about her. She too is one of my greatest friends. And so yeah, and then just holding that honor. St. Mike's athletics and St. Mike's basketball in particular has a really rich history. I'm
Mhm.
referencing the 1957 1958 St. Mike's men's basketball team. So to get to hold the title of captain in that space and in that sport is really special. And I'm really glad that I had that honor.
Yeah, so talk about it. You got to what was it like to play with fellow New Yorker Emily Ferrari? Did you know Emily, before you attended St. Mike's? I know you're both from New York, but you grew up, a couple hours apart in different towns. So yeah, what was it like to play with, fellow New Yorker? And I see, she studied biology and you studied biochemistry. So, were you in any of the same classes together?
Yeah. So if I don't look back on my time at St. Mike's
Mhm.
without thinking about Emily.
Yeah.
Day one, ride or die. So no, we didn't know each other before college. I'm from Long Island. She grew up in the Poughkeepsie area.
Yep.
And so we actually did sort of try to piece together one time, like trying to figure out like, oh, were we at the same tournament that one time? And like just didn't know each other, but we, played in the same tournaments and went to the same places around there. Um, but yeah, getting to play with her was really great. She was the one other person in my class, so it sort of just was us two from the beginning all the way to the end. Um, and yeah, she is first of all a great basketball player, a very very sneaky lefty that nobody in the NE10 was able to pick up, which was
Okay.
really fun to watch her play. Um, and a great leader as well. When I got injured, it was interesting because we sort of had to switch roles. Prior to my injury, I had sort of been the leader on the court, just from the way that I was playing and, putting numbers in the stat book and things like that. And she was an awesome leader with her voice. And when I got injured, we sort of had no choice but to switch roles. I physically couldn't be out on the court anymore, and so she started to take this amazing leadership presence on the court and putting up the numbers and getting the stats in the book, and I had to use my voice in a way that I had never had to before, really. And it was just a seamless transition because I feel like we were always on the same page about everything. And then just like on a personal note, she's a very very dear friend. She was my roommate all 4 years throughout college. Like you said, she was a biology major. I was a biochemistry major. So we
Yeah,
were quite literally classmates in many classes as well, and lab partners in lab classes as well. And yeah, I still keep in contact with her to this day.
nice. So something that happened that we wanted to touch on is you had your college basketball career cut short by a torn ACL. So tell me about this injury and how difficult was it for you to have your college basketball career cut short by a torn ACL?
Very difficult. And
Hmm.
unfortunately, there are too many people out there who can relate to this. Very, very difficult to the point where it still hurts. Like, not my knee. I'm totally fine, totally healthy in that regard. But like emotionally, it still really does hurt because I love basketball and I wish I got the ending that I had wanted. Um, I think for the past couple of years, I've been searching for like, oh, that time when it's not going to feel so bad anymore and I'm not going to feel so crummy about it anymore. And I think within the past sort of year, I've kind of accepted that that feeling will probably never go away, but that's okay. Because it doesn't take away from the 3 years prior that I did have and all of and the lifetime rather of basketball that I had before that. It doesn't take away from, my high school experiences and things that we've been talking about. So it was definitely very, very difficult mentally and emotionally. However, my team was really great about still giving me an awesome senior night. I was able to still hold that leadership position and again find a new way to use my voice that I had never really had to before. And so yeah, it was a different experience. Um, and yeah, I wish of course that it had ended differently, but the fact that I sort of feel like things are unfinished, maybe this is reading too much into it, but it makes me feel hopeful that basketball will still be in my life in some capacity because of this unfinished ending.
Nice. So at St. Mike's, you're very involved. I'll just, you have a long list of involvements. I'll just touch on a few of them. You were involved with the honors program mentor, orientation leader. You're involved with Founders Society, PK, LA, campus tour guide. As we said, you studied abroad in France. You went on move service trips. You were a chemistry department teaching assistant, and you also um, or an orientation leader and a campus tour guide. So, you have a long list of involvements at St. Mike's. Was your goal always to be, super involved during college, or did, opportunities just arise for you?
Yeah, I think so. I think I had always wanted to be involved. I was very involved in clubs and sports and clubs and everything like that in high school. Um, and so I definitely wanted to continue that in college. And so I'd say like the big spark for me was when I became an O leader my sophomore year. That was when I really got to see everything that St. Mike's has to offer. Because, when you're an orientation leader and you're prepping for the new students to come in, we meet with so many different areas of campus from admissions to the Bergeron Wellness Center. Um, and, the people in the academic apartments. And that's when I was able to really see, wow, I really like being in this leadership position. I really like being involved. And St. Mike's has so much to offer. And so, yeah, that's sort of how I got involved in everything. And then things just sort of came up by chance. Like I started getting more involved with the chemistry department
Yeah.
later on in college when, I started doing research. Um, I really loved being a tour guide and being involved with admissions.
Mhm.
And yeah, and then of course, obviously, like being a basketball player, that was obviously my number one priority. But I really liked being involved. That's sort of just my personality. And another thing that I always say is that the reason I was able to be involved in so much is quite literally because of St. Mike's smaller campus size. So, like, if I have a practice or lift until 4 p.m. in Ross, I can make it to the Founder Society meeting in Hale at 4:15 because it's just a quick walk across campus. It's not like these large universities where you need to get on a bus or a campus shuttle just to get to a different part of campus. You know, the fact that I can quickly go
Mm,
from one place to the other made it possible for me to be involved in so much. And so that's something that I always think about too.
nice. So touch on, so outside of getting your PhD in biochemistry, what are some things that you do outside of, your PhD program? What are some of your, passions or hobbies, you know,
That's a
in
fun
your free
question.
time?
Yeah, that's a fun question. Um, so something that I did in high school that I didn't really have time for in college was singing. I was a part of the choir all throughout high school and I took it quite seriously. We were very, very good. And to this day, I'll say that my high school choir teacher is the best teacher I've ever had in my life. He's wonderful. And so he had a huge impact on me. And so I didn't really get to sing in college as much as I would have liked to. I got to take chorale spring semester of my senior year, but that was it. So post grad was the first time in my life that I, didn't have basketball or sports being my number one priority. So I promised myself that I would get back into singing because it was something that I was really passionate about. And it worked out. I now sing in a number of different choirs throughout New York City. I've been able to perform at places like Carnegie Hall and
Oh,
Lincoln
wow.
Center and Trinity Church. It's something that I take quite seriously and I'm really passionate about. And I love doing it. And then hand in hand with that, I'm the biggest Broadway geek you will ever meet. So I am always at a Broadway show. I love musical theater and going to see shows. But that aside, I also spend a large portion of my time doing St. Mike's alumni stuff.
Okay.
So when I graduated in 2019, I started working with the alumni office sort of just as a New York City volunteer, putting on events for our New York City based alumni here throughout the city.
Yeah.
And then for the past like year and a half ish, I've had the honor of serving on the alumni board of directors. And so I actually, come back up to campus a couple of times a year. We meet with the various departments throughout campus, from marketing to finance to admissions, institutional advancement, athletics. And it's been wonderful to be able to give back and serve the college in this way. So I actually do a lot of St. Mike's alumni stuff in my free time.
Nice. I have two more questions. So, with your PhD in biochemistry, I see you have a lot of, publications and awards you've gotten. So, just touch on some of your publications and, some of the awards or honors you've received that you're most proud of.
Oh, thank you. That's a fun question for a sports interview. Because I could talk about my research all day. So that's really
Okay.
fun. Thanks for asking that. I guess a really fun publication that I would like to throw out there if you wanted to check it out is it's good. The title of it is Unraveling the In Vivo Fate of Inhaled Micro and Nanoplastics with PET Imaging. So that's my plastic side of research that I have been sort of that I mentioned before. I like to talk about that because this is quite literally the birth of a new field. This is a new field of science, and never before has medical imaging or PET imaging been harnessed to track environmental pollutants within the body. I'm sure you've seen in the news, recently, I feel like within the past year, the discussion around micro and nanoplastics in particular has really ramped up. So to be able to perform this study and talk about its future implications was really, really fascinating. And I'm very proud of that publication. And I also have a number of publications that discuss my efforts in developing novel imaging agents for various kinds of cancer. I've been able to work on breast and ovarian cancer, colorectal cancer, and pancreatic ductal adenocarcinoma and gastric cancer. And I've been able to develop imaging agents for all those kinds of malignancies. And yeah, I just think there's great promise in the field of radiotheranostics and molecular imaging. And then one particular award that I'm very, very honored and so grateful to have received is a grant from the NIH, from the National Cancer Institute of the NIH. They offer training awards to doctoral students. And I was able to receive the Ruth L. Kirstein Pre-Doctoral Fellowship Award, which is awarded to pre-doctoral students to fund them during their PhDs. It was an honor and a surprise and an honor to receive that fellowship. And I'm very, very proud of it and the work that I've been able to do in graduate school. Thank you for asking that question too. That was great.
Oh yeah, you're very accomplished. So yeah, definitely. So two questions I've left. So you grew up on Long Island. Are you a fan of any of the New York sports teams? And if so, who are your favorite teams?
Yeah, so it's funny because if you had asked me, I've always been a Yankees fan. Like I will always be a Yankees fan. Always paid
That's
attention
good.
to baseball since I was a kid.
Yeah.
If you had asked me about like NBA teams, even though basketball has quite literally been my life for my entire life, like during college and prior to college, I would have said no. I couldn't name a single person on the team, even though my family has always been a diehard Knicks fan.
Okay.
Post college, however, I've really gotten into the Knicks because a couple years ago they sort of took on all these young kids and they were rebuilding, and it was really exciting to watch. And so, yeah, now I'm definitely a Knicks fan and I pay attention to them. And my family is not happy about the recent trade with RJ Barrett, who
Yeah.
was somebody we held to be the future of the Knicks. And we're really excited about him and we really love him. And so, that was a rough day in the Delaney household. It happened like very recently, like a
Hmm.
week and a half ago or something like that. That was a rough day in the Delaney household. So now I pay attention to the Knicks.
Yeah, I think that's what a lot of fans have done. They had Carmelo Anthony and Mari Stoudemire a
Hmm.
few years back, and then they had a few rough years, and now they're sort of rebuilding. With a lot of young players, and they're sort of getting back to playing some good basketball.
Yeah.
Last year.
Yeah, I
We
live
had
I live close to MSG as well, and just being able to see
yeah
the Knicks play there. I mean, there's no venue on earth like MSG. Like it's
yeah
just an awesome atmosphere to be in. It reminds me of my days playing basketball, just like being in the gym, that hyped up space again. Oh, feels so good.
yeah. I think that's with a lot of the New York teams. Also like the Giants. I'm a Giants fan, and they had, Eli, and they won two Super Bowls, and they had a few rough years, and then now they're sort of getting back to playing well. Like last year, they made it to the playoffs. This year was rough, but I think
Yeah.
with a lot of the New York teams, they're slowly rebuilding after a few, good years. Just like the Yankees, we had,
Hmm.
the Derek Jeter years where we won a lot of World Series. They made a few rough years now with Aaron Judge. We're sort of
Yep.
slowly, you know, rebuilding back.
Exactly.
Yeah. So my final question is, do you ever get to play basketball these days? And do you see, or do you hope that basketball will continue to be a part of your life, going forward?
Hmm. Yeah, I always play whenever I'm at home, like the hoop at home, in the street, brothers, neighbors, anyone. I like playing there. I I know I would have had COVID not happened, which like obviously like completely changed and uprooted our worlds. But um I started my PhD program in 2019 and then March 2020 happened. Had that not happened, I feel like I would have joined a league. And then, COVID obviously happened and we were in lockdown and in under such, strict restrictions for so long. And then when life started to get back to some form of normal, my research really started to pick up. And so I haven't been able to join a league since college, but I want to. I want to so badly. So I'm really hoping in my new city, in Copenhagen, I'll be able to fit basketball in there somewhere. But like I mentioned before, I do feel like my story with basketball is unfinished. I miss it every single day. I miss St. Mike's basketball every single day. I love basketball. I'll go to Knicks games. So yes, I absolutely want basketball to stay a part of my life forever because I love it. It's a huge part of who I am.